want to say welcome, Will Greenblatt from OutLoud Speakers School. How you doing, Will?
I'm doing well, thanks. Yeah, how are you doing?
I'm
I didn't
doing
get to
great.
ask you before we started. Yeah,
That's all right. We've it's been a busy day. I've been hopping from Zoom meeting to Zoom meeting, and I've got lots going on. But we're doing a dry run for our session tomorrow, just before this. And at noon we had Equivesto on. I've been
nice.
dealing with some startups in between,
Hmm.
so there's always a lot going on. And
Yeah,
I feel like I'm busier now than I was before,
I'm
which
hearing that from a lot of people. I'm sure. Yeah, it seems especially entrepreneurs like more. There's more. I don't know if it's there's more desperation or urgency, or if there just truly are more opportunities that are coming out of that. I would think it's probably a bit of both, but yeah, it's incredible that everybody I talk to's workload seems to have doubled or tripled. It's like it doesn't stop now, and there's no separation between the office and the home. So it's like everybody's working more. It's really crazy.
yeah, I saw one graphic recently where it was Stickman sitting at a desk with the screen, but it was like 100 different little squares. One said work, one said play, one said date, one said eat, one said, it's
Yeah,
all the same, but you're all in the same position.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so that's kind of where we're at now.
Hmm.
Uh, Before we get into it, on your slides, you talk about who you are and your
Yeah,
background?
I've got a whole little story of myself on those, so I can just start sharing.
Fantastic. Start sharing.
Cool.
Will and I have been working together for a long time. I know you doing some voiceover work. I know with some of the companies I work with. I know you do some voiceover and acting work for video games and whatnot.
Hmm.
I'm just gonna while you're loading this up, I'm just gonna
I
keep
think
rambling.
it says host
Oh
has
yeah.
disabled attendee screen
Oh,
sharing.
this is a new sorry, this is a new Zoom feature.
Yeah, I ran afoul of it earlier today.
Yeah. Sorry.
Always updating and changing everything.
Yeah, and from time to time, there you go, buddy. You should be able to do that now.
Awesome, thanks. So here we
And I wanted
go.
to mention that you teach Google, TechStars, Founders
Hmm.
Institute, DMZ, Communitech, and many others. You're also a regular fixture when we're doing our investor speed dating and startup drinks event. So we work together a fair bit. And if you want to know how to pitch, like I said, you teach TechStars and the people who are getting funded. You've helped people raise millions of dollars. So you're someone we should be paying attention to. So we are in the normal view. It's not a full screen.
Okay, I'll hit us with that full screen.
Perfect. There we
Let
are.
me know when you can see that.
I can
Yeah.
see it.
So as Craig said, I run OutLoud Speaker School, and I'll sort of drop a bunch of those clients and those stats in a bit. But I wanted to share sort of my story of how I got to where I am, to give you some context and to understand where my work comes from and why I focus on the things that I do. So just about me and my journey to Out Loud. I started as a child actor. That's 7-year-old me looking all dirty and disheveled. And this was a movie I did when I was just a little kid. And I fell into acting through my parents. My father and my mother and even my older sister were all in the business. And so I got an audition to this big movie, and then I ended up getting it right away when I was 7 years old. And so it kind of started this whole career when I was just a kid. But I loved it. I loved everything about being on set and doing TV and film. And I really just had a great time. And I thought, okay, I'm going to be an actor. And I kept acting. This was a show I did for YTV that I was the lead on, and when I was 12 years old. And that for a second looked like it was going to go really big and go to Europe and do all this stuff. And of course it didn't. That's the nature of the business. You think something's going to make your career, and it rarely does. Yeah, but I kept doing it. I kept acting and working all throughout high school. And I thought, okay, well, this is my career. I'm going to be an actor, and I should go get some serious training. So I went to theater school, to National Theater School in Montreal. But I hated it. I absolutely couldn't stand it. I had such a bad time there because of the way they taught. They were so militant and strict, and they wanted you to be like a head down, doesn't do anything else with their life actor, and whose whole life is the theater and has no other interests and no other outside things unless it serves you. And they also were very much of the attitude of shut up and do what we say, you know? Don't ask questions. Don't ask why we're telling you to do this weird exercise of rolling on the floor and making wolf noises. Just do it. And I would always say, well, why? Why are we doing this? What is this for? And they would, I just headbutted so much with the faculty. So I quit. I was like, screw this. I'm done. I just had too much time in the business. I hated my experience there. So I left and I went to Spain. and I wanted to travel and I wanted to learn Spanish. So I thought maybe I'll get my English teaching certificate so I can pay my way while I'm traveling. And that's what I did. But I realized that I actually really love teaching English. So I became an English teacher for a while. And then I started a school in China in a city called Hangzhou. I started my first venture, which was an English school that pivoted to being a business coaching company for adults. And then when I actually had a really bad back injury, I hurt my back really badly when I was in China, and I came home and I didn't know what to do. And that's a whole other story, which I've told on several sort of platforms. But through that process, I really started thinking about what I wanted my life to look like. And I thought a lot about mental health and communication skills and what had gone wrong with my previous venture and how I felt about myself. And then I ended up using kind of all that. Once I got better, I started OutLoud Speakers School with my acting mentor, Nikki Guadagni. She was my acting mentor, helped me get into theater school. And so now what we do is we teach communication. We are actors who teach communication and pitching, and public speaking, all these skills that we learn at theater school and then practice every day. So we help entrepreneurs and executives and their team tell powerful stories. That's really what it is that we focus on, is telling powerful stories no matter what it is. It's a pitch is a story after all. That's all that everything that you do is. Everything is a pitch and every pitch is a story. We worked in Canada, the US, Mexico, and China. We've coached over 1,500 entrepreneurs. We've helped them raise 41 million, although I think that number's closer to 55 now. And yeah, we're a member of DENT Global KPI Accelerator, which is a fantastic accelerator program that we're currently going through. And we've worked with Google and Founder Institute, TechStars, Good Life. We're working with Wayfair and Ericsson now. So we've had a lot of corporate clients, but what I really love is working with entrepreneurs and helping them develop their pitch and through the form of a story. So if you're an entrepreneur, you start out with this idea. That idea is super exciting. I think everybody can relate to that moment where we're like, oh my God, this is the business idea. This is it. There's a business here. I can do something with this. And whether you have a co-founder or not, you get super excited, and it's just so motivating and exciting to think that you could have the freedom to start something that you love and you care about. You can do it your way, keep your own hours, and all of that is just amazing. But then of course you get lost in the details. And it's about data and numbers and metrics and how to and practicalities and hiring people and getting money and pitching to investors and all these tiny little things that make you get lost in the weed. And then there's, I've been going through this recently. I've just been resenting my business. I don't know how many people feel like this, but I'm just like, I hate my company right now. I don't want to do this stuff. I'm bored of it. I'm sick of it. I want to do something else. Although I certainly couldn't, even if I tried, because I'm too invested in this. But we go through those phases, right? And whether or not you consciously feel that, or just it's a subconscious thing that starts to take hold, you get lost in the weeds of your business and you lose that passion, which was why you started it. So. And then, of course, you can also get stage fright. And, if you do still have that passion, or you are on an upswing where you feel super great about your business, you can get up on stage or on a webinar like this and just go, well, and forget every single thing that you want to say or in what order you wanted to say it. And that's no fun for anyone. And I have been through extreme stage fright myself. So I know how it feels really, really acutely. So that's why I started all this. So there's a way that we overcome these problems, and that's what I call the 5 A's. So we call it a powerful pitch that you come to if you go through these 5 A's. And this is our method that we've sort of developed about the kind of curriculum and the journey we take people on. First step is awareness. Second step is articulation, and then action, which are the 3 steps we're going to cover today, which is why I mentioned them. So awareness is the psychology of communication, the art and the science of it. What makes a great communicator and what makes a bad communicator, or somebody who doesn't get their point across? Why do some people affect us in such a positive way? We love hearing from them or being around them, and other people just make us go, duh, no, not you. Why do some people win elections and others don't? Why do some people change the whole world with just their words and ideas and others don't? Why does these sounds that I'm making with my mouth right now hit your eardrums and go to your brain and give you a sense of a story that I'm telling? Why does all that happen? And learning about all that is really, really key to understanding how to get better at it. And then, of course, being aware of yourself. How do you communicate? What are your habits and what are your tendencies when you speak, and how could you improve upon them? Articulation is the next step, where it's what to say and how to say it. Telling a story and telling that story well and in a compelling way with good speaking skills, good techniques, good writing skills, wherever your story is coming at your audience or investors, doing that in the best way possible with the best structure and the best strategic overall arc of a story, that's what makes a pitch satisfying. And remember, your pitch is not just your, hey, please give me money to investors. Your pitch is your whole story. Whenever anybody comes across your ecosystem of ideas and all the stuff that you have out in the world, and usually on the internet, that is your pitch. You are constantly pitching with every piece of content that you put out. And then there's the action, which is, okay, once we kind of learn about these things, now what do I do? Like literally, what do I do to get my message out there, to get some investment money, to get more customers, to get partnerships, to get collaborators, and what are those practical skills? So that's really what we're going to look at today. So the first step is awareness. And that's what actors do. And that's what they teach you at theater school. So, even though I hated my theater school time, I really use a lot of it now because I feel that the theatrical techniques are so important, but they just need to be taught in a way that's accessible and not in a way that's like, do this or you're not a good actor, but just like, hey, if you pay attention to this stuff, you can learn a lot about the human condition. But I always tell people why. So the very first thing they tell you to do at theater school is sit on a park bench and people watch, or go on the subway and people watch, and take a notebook and see what people are doing and how they're walking around, and what can you glean from how these people are feeling or what they're doing or what their relationships are to other people. And that is the beginning of the actor's awareness, opening up your mind and really looking at the minutia of people. And like literally, is it their eyebrows? How are their eyebrows? What's the difference between this and this? That's a whole different person on a whole different day, right? Or what's the difference between this and this? Just millimeters of change in posture or facial expression or use of hands, the different tones of the voice and the inflection that we use, that all tells a story, but we're not really aware of it unless we are told to be. And that's what I try to spread is awareness. Start to become a professional human, watch people and get that information and use it to be a better entrepreneur and a better speaker. So it all goes back to evolutionary psychology for me. Ancient tribes over millennia evolved the necessity and the need for good communication skills. And it became essential to us as human beings. You can't separate it from who we are as a species. Good storytelling and communication and public speaking skills. So 4 really important things happened during evolution that have to do with our public speaking, which are really important to note. Number 1, communication skills are essential. We do not have a society without communication skills. We've all agreed that Canada is a thing and that it has a line at the bottom of it where it becomes US, which is a different thing. And they tell each other slightly different stories down there, and like laws and, how their customs work and their money, all this kind of stuff. Also, within your tribe, communicating could be the difference between life and death, which I'll get to later. Also, we became addicted to story because tribes who could tell stories in a way where people would remember where's the food, where's the predators, where's the prey, they could remember that information if it was told in a story with lots of acting and emotional intrigue. And if a tribe couldn't tell the story that way, they would die out. So every single human being alive today is addicted to story, and you need to know that and use it when you're telling your story. And another thing that happened is we developed anxiety. You know that feeling when your heart starts beating and you can't think properly and you're on a webinar? That comes from your ancestors running away from lions. Seriously, if you needed to get out of a situation, your rational faculties shut down, all the brain processes that made you think, oh, well, isn't this interesting? All that shuts down, your muscles tighten up, your logical brain goes out the window, and all the systems that help get you out of a dangerous situation or fight off a dangerous enemy, those kick into overdrive and you can't think anymore. And that's what happens when you stand up in front of a group and try to tell your story and start to go, what am I talking about? And your palms are sweating and your mouth is dry. This is all a consequence of evolution. But it's important to know that and not try to stop it necessarily, but just contextualize it, understand it. And then we have that tribal status feeling of life or death, which is where I believe all stage fright and camera shyness and anxiety of public speaking come from. Back in the day, if you stood up in front of your tribe and told a story and they didn't believe you or they didn't like what you were talking about or you insulted someone, they could kill you, right? They'd kick you out of the cave, they'd stab you with a rock, and then leave you for the wolves. And we, deep down in our DNA, still feel that. When we're talking to each other, we go, oh my God, this is so important. If I don't convince everyone and if I don't really, really tell everybody a good story, I'm dead. But of course, that's not true anymore, but it's really good to understand these things and to know this. If you want to learn more about this, this is a really fantastic book where a lot of my research on this comes from, called The Storytelling Animal by Jonathan Goshaw. Really, really good book. And the whole thing I take away from this is that story makes people feel emotions. Emotions make people remember information. And if they remember you, then you've created an impact, and they are more likely to do what you want, whether that's invest in you or buy your product or keep following you, if you can raise their emotions. And the way to do that is to tell a story. So we're still doing this today, but a lot of these psychological factors are now pushed back through these screens and through these microphones, right? Through which we're communicating. But now more than ever, people say this all the time, but it's true. Now more than ever, these skills are really, really, really important to kind of overwork, right? You have to be louder than before. You have to be clearer than before. You have to be more passionate than before. Otherwise, people on the other end of the webinar are going to go, boring, right? You have to really work to get your passion and your message through this little webcam here and through the microphone, which I urge all of you to start to do. But really, it's just about paying attention and starting to look at these things. And one thing that you can do, and I'll share these slides with everyone later, is think about your speech settings, which are all the different ways the technical elements of your speech can be between a 0 and a 10. So for a volume, for example, your volume could be at a 10, which is as loud as you can yell, or it could be at a 0. And of course, everybody falls on different points of the spectrum, and they're constantly can be adjusted, right? Depending on what you want to talk about. If you want to get serious, you can get a little quieter, right? Or if you really want to wake people up, you can go up here, but it should just constantly be, first of all, a choice that you're choosing where to put your speech settings, and that it's for a reason. It's a choice to communicate something, to wake people up, or to impress a point, or to emphasize something. You're always in control of your speech settings, but it starts with becoming aware of them. Then we have pace, which is how fast you're going, pitch, which is how high or how low you're speaking, clarity, which is how clearly you are pronouncing your words, inflection, which is the musical up and downness of your voice, of course, physical expressiveness, how much you're using your body. And another thing that is important on Zoom is, can we see your hands on camera? Everybody's gesturing down here. You can't see it. Bring it up here. Put more going on in the frame. There you go, Craig. You know, we see those fingers. These are like little little sock puppets, right? If you bring them up here, it creates a whole another dimension of stuff going on. So I always say, yeah, bring your hands up here and use them. Facial expressiveness, same thing. If sometimes people are just seeing a little postage stamp of you, especially if you're in like a group call, right? Even if you're speaking, you may not be full screen. So really use your eyebrows, engage the eyebrows, smile big if you're going to smile. You know, it may feel uncomfortable at first, but you really got to start to play around, become aware, and then control your speech settings. And then we have groundedness. How are you sitting in your chair? How are you sitting? Are you sitting up? Are you connected to your seat? Or are you just kind of slunched over, which collapses your lungs and your diaphragm and you can't make any sound, right? All these things together make your speech settings. And I cover this in many, many videos. I don't want to take too much time on it now, but it's a really good way to start to look at yourself as a sort of technical work in progress, like your app, right? You don't call your app stupid or annoying or obnoxious when it doesn't work. You go, oh, I just have to fiddle with some things. And that's how I want you to think about your own speaking. Don't be so judgmental. Just look at it more as a technical project.
Unfortunately, I say piece of crap app.
Piece of crap app. Yeah. I mean, obviously sometimes you go piece of crap, but then you know it's up to you to make the adjustments, or whoever you're paying to code it for you, right? So I just want to stop here because I've kind of been ranting for a while. I just want to see if anybody has any questions.
Yeah, there is a question here specifically
yes.
about the speech settings. Are there cultural context to how we present and what speech settings to use depending on the audience?
Absolutely. I do a whole thing on cultural, what's called the 6 dimensions model of national culture. So I worked a lot in China and Spain and worked as an English teacher and worked with many students around the world who are coming to Canada and trying to work as entrepreneurs in Canada. And there are often very clear things from different countries that don't translate well to a Canadian audience or an American audience. And so obviously that stuff can be messy too, though. So I try to keep it as kind of scientific as possible. So if anyone's interested, there's a guy called Geert Hofstede, who's a Dutch sociologist who has a website that measures a lot of different personality traits of a national culture. So one of them is power distance index. How much does a culture accept that some people are up here and some people are down here? For cultures like China, for instance, or Korea is another one, that have a high power distance index, there's an inherent kind of thought that some people are sort of in a higher position than others, and that's okay. And what's more, that is to be respected. So oftentimes when a Chinese or a Korean entrepreneur will get on stage, there's a very deferential body language and eye contact. They don't look in the eyes often. There's a reluctance to kind of look the audience in their eyes as a sign of respect, what would be really respectful in their culture. But to a Canadian audience or an American audience, it looks a little nervous or deferential, and we don't feel their physical expressiveness or their volume as much. So yes, if you're coming from a culture that has a high power distance index, you might need to overwork your physical expressiveness and your facial expressiveness and your volume, because your tendency may be to kind of tamp down on those things out of respect. And there's a lot of factors that go on here, but that's what Craig just put in is a great thing to look at, and just start to notice as well. You know, you can also gain a lot from your audience and see, you know, what they're reacting to and what they're not. If there's some people who are talking really loudly and the audience is kind of doing this, then you have a sense that maybe it's not necessarily a room that's ready for something like that. But that's why awareness is so important. There's no real rules here. There's just guidelines, and the person who is most aware and knows how to navigate this will do the best wherever they are and whomever they're speaking to. Does that make sense?
Saint Ike.
Saint Ike.
Yeah. Nice to see you back, Saint Ike.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay,
and
great.
I've
Thanks
just
for the question.
posted the Wikipedia article there talking about the cultural dimensions theory that he talks about. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there are definitely cultural contests. So basically, here's a sort of cheat. The takeaway here is, if you're in Canada, usually whoever you are, you have to do higher volume, higher inflection, which is the as I said, the up and downness of your voice, how you move from one part of the sentence to the other, and how you separate ideas. We've got this thing, but then that thing's not so great, but this third thing is really good. You know, using your voice to kind of separate these ideas and lift up and compare and contrast. That's inflection. So higher volume, higher inflection, higher physical expressiveness, and higher facial expressiveness. Almost every single client I work with for the Canadian audience is too low in those 4 categories. So louder, more music in the voice, and more physical and facial expressiveness. Okay. Next. And another way to start to understand where you fall on these speech settings is just film yourself and watch back. Everybody hates doing this because you see yourself and you go, oh God. And this is where that self-critique thing that I was talking about before comes in. You watch a video of yourself and you hear your voice and you see your face and you go, oh, who likes this douchebag? I hate this person. Anyways, maybe that's just me, but I know that when I watch myself on video and listen back, I'm very hypercritical of every little vocal thing I do that's weird, every little tiny thing that I say that I judge is weird. And that's no fun. But if you start to watch yourself with these speech settings and take it away from the like, oh, I'm not cool, or my hair looks bad, or my voice sounds annoying, and just get into the thing of, oh, maybe I could just slow down my pace a little bit because I'm rushing a bit, right? Maybe I don't know that about myself. Me personally, I know that I have a really high pace. So right now, as I'm even talking about it, I'm conscious, okay, I can actually bring it down a little bit, and that's okay. I don't have to just go the whole presentation. I can actually just go, okay, like a slider. That's why I have it on these sort of this slider image, like a DJ's mixing board, is you can just slide it down. I'm just going to slide the pace down from an 8 to a 5. And this 5 pace may be better for what I want to do right now. So by watching yourself and filming yourself then watching it, you start to get a sense of where you sit and what your tendencies are. And then you can just make a choice. Maybe I don't want to rush through this part of my presentation. Yeah? And then that's what this is helpful for. Now we get to articulation. It's phase 2. Once you've started to become aware and noticed who's a good speaker, when am I a good speaker, when do I feel most comfortable, and starting to look at your own life and all your habits and all this sort of thing, which is a much longer process than I've described, but those are the basics. You get into articulation, so which is what to say and how to say it. And it's got to be story. You know, for me, everything is a story, because that's how we relate to the world. We tell each other stories about, as I said, things like money and laws and the idea of a country. That's all a story that we tell ourselves and that we believe in. You know, also we tell ourselves stories about who we are, what we're capable of, why we are the way that we are. And that's just how we relate to most of the information in the world, is through stories. So let's look at that. What's the most powerful structure of a story? Well, it's actually this: the hero's journey. If you can, just write in the chat box if you've ever seen this, the hero's journey, or know about Joseph Campbell and the monomyth, the hero of 1,000 faces. Just write a yes or a no if you can. Just interested, because this gets shared a lot. So maybe some people are like, oh yeah, this is old news, but I'd like to know if anybody's hasn't heard of this.
We got no response so far.
Anyone?
I guess.
That's okay. So I'll just go over it very quickly, but this is worth looking deeper into if you've never heard of this. But I just want to highlight some of the key parts of this. Basically, every movie or book or legend or myth that we're aware of, and it's not just in Western culture, but kind of all around the world, follows the same basic kind of journey of the main character. It starts out in an ordinary world. Patricia says she watched it. Yeah, it's great, eh? Yeah, there's a great TED Talk video that I'll share. I assume this is the one Patricia's seen, but if not, I'll share that anyways at the end. But everything starts in an ordinary world, right? For Lord of the Rings, it's the Shire. Frodo is in his boring but kind of fun, peaceful, safe countryside home. And that's what he likes, and that's what he's familiar with. Then there's a call to adventure. Bilbo goes, and Gandalf goes, I'd like you to take this ring and go, destroy it. Then there's the refusal of the call. No, I can't do it. It's too much for me. Then there's the meeting of the mentor. Here comes Aragorn, and he goes, I will help you. And then there's the crossing of the threshold. Okay, we'll leave the Shire, and now we'll go to the new world. And then there's the tests, the allies, and the enemies. Usually this is the bulk of the movie. It's where all the crazy stuff happens. They meet all the new people. They do all the crazy fight scenes, the chase scenes. They meet the love interests. That's usually all the bulk of this. But they're in the special world. They're in this new place. They've left home. Then they approach the cave, which is where the climax happens. Then they have the ordeal, which is the climax. And then they get this reward. And then they go home and they return with this elixir. The elixir is the fantastic thing that they have, that they got from their journey. It could be metaphorical, like they're, forever more confident or something, or it could be an actual magical potion, which is what elixir means. But the point is they leave the ordinary world, and then they come back forever changed, usually for the better. And that's the point. So this is really important when we start to tell our story, that all of these famous stories that we know, people are trained to look for this kind of a journey, and they like the story better when it follows this satisfying character arc. So this is something you can do. This is a little thing that I've kind of developed for you guys, especially what I call the startup story. The startup story is taking certain elements of the hero story and putting them together. So anytime you make a piece of content, whether it's tiny short form or really long form, you can follow this basic formula. The basic formula with stuff that you can fill in is this. You set the ordinary world for your listeners, whether they're investors or customers. The ordinary world is the customer's problems. What is life like now, and what problems does that create for your customer? Even the investors need to hear the customer's problems, right? Because they're not, I've had clients who are like, why do I need to talk about the customer's problems to the investors? Like, well, if you can't demonstrate that you understand your market's problems, nobody in their right mind will give you any money to start a business. You need to show that you understand that there's people with the problems, that there's enough of them, and that they'll pay for them. So you demonstrate that with this ordinary world. This is how things stand now. This is what's going on in the world. And it sucks. It's hard. It's painful, or it's emotionally damaging, or it's scary, or whatever the problem you're solving is. And it's a good thing to think about that. Is it fear? Is it loneliness? Is it, it's stress? What are these problems that you're solving? And then the call to adventure, which is your solution. How do you offer this opportunity for people, your customer, to be the hero, to go on this journey? And the journey is your product, or following you, being in your ecosystem of ideas and tips and resources and all the stuff that you offer as an entrepreneur. And the more of this you can offer, the more attractive it is for anybody to kind of get on board with your journey. So what is the ordinary world, and what problems does that pose? And then how do you come along and solve it? So that's the call to adventure. Is like this amazing new thing that I have, that I've started, this problem that I really care about solving is here. And we can solve this problem if we do my thing. Number 2, tests, allies, and enemies. And this is all, as I said, this is the heart of the movie, and it's also the heart of your pitch. It's all the practical stuff, the need to know, okay? If it's an investor pitch, Do you know your target market? How many people are there? What's the market size, right? What's your go-to-market strategy? How are you going to price this thing? You know, all those sort of things. You know, how are you going to, what's your timeline look like? How much money do you need? What are you going to spend it on? So all those sorts of things, that goes in the sort of middle part, and you kind of build your case, whether it's to your customer. To your customer, it'd be a little less detail oriented and more like, what do you need to know? What are the features of this product? What are some objections you might have? Is it too expensive? Is it too difficult? How do we overcome those? And then at the end, you get to number 3, which is the elixir, the amazing result if they invest in you, if they buy from you, or if they follow you on social media, or, you know, your newsletter, whatever it is, your call to action that you want. That basic formula can help you make tons and tons and tons of content, from your long form investor pitch to a 60-second video, knowing that if you're telling a story, this is the formula to use. What is the problem? What are your solutions? What are the need to knows, the takeaways, the details, and then what's the result? What do I really get if I buy into what you're telling me? So that's something, you know, I explain this on different channels, and I don't want to belabor it too much here just for time, but this is a really powerful thing. So just know that you got to set the story. What are the problems? You know, what's your solution? What are the details? And then what do I get if I do the thing you're asking? And then think about the pain points when you're telling the story, and think about the customer problems. I say there are 5 big pain points out there. They are, Craig, do you want to have a guess at some of these?
Money.
Yeah, there's money. People want want more, or don't want to lose what they have. Yeah.
They want more or don't have enough.
Yeah.
Time, the broken clock over there.
Wasted time. Yeah, that's, or you know, trying to get rid of wasted time or to gain back time, which is kind of all the same thing. And then, yeah, what else do we got?
I'm guessing doing what you want, like the playing with your family is living the life you want rather than other things. So
yes,
lifestyle.
I call it tribe,
Okay,
which is basically like your family, friends, and community, all your relationships, maybe we could say, but it's your relationships with those you care about. You know, we don't care as much about people kind of outside of our immediate circle, but we want us to be good with our friends, family, and our community.
And with the doctor, I'm saying health.
Yeah, with the doctor, it's physical health, right?
Yeah.
I mean, right now, if you could solve coronavirus, holy shit, right? I mean, that's sorry, I can't stop cursing. You know, that's everything right now. But also notice that these other factors are wrapped up in the coronavirus panic, right? Everything we're worried about coronavirus, all 5 of these pain points it covers. We're worried about our relationships with people. We're worried about the time that we're losing. We're worried about money. We're worried about our physical health. And then what's this last one?
Mental health.
Mental health, or emotional well-being. And what I say is, so yeah, just to reiterate, that's time, money, health, tribe, and emotional well-being. I believe that underneath the first 4 is the 5th. And really, at the heart of everything else, there is this. You know, the reason we want our relationships to be good with our community is because it makes us feel better. There is scientific evidence for this. When we have good relationships, we have better mental health. When we have more money, although interestingly enough, not past a certain point, we have more well-being, right? I think in Canada, they did a study that once you start making more than $80,000 or $70,000, your happiness stops going up proportionally. So yeah, so too much money obviously brings its own problems. But if you don't have enough, your emotional well-being really suffers. Physical health. If there weren't pain signals going to your brain and there wasn't a depression for the lost basketball game or the lack of being able to go camping, physical pain would not be such a big deal. But it's all of the emotional well-being that it damages that makes physical health such a big deal. And then, of course, the emotional well-being of the people around you who aren't physically in discomfort. And then the time. We don't have enough time, we are miserable. Or if we feel like we're losing time or running out of time, we're miserable. So all these things really at the heart of it get to this emotional well-being. That's what I believe. And so if you can really speak to this when you're pitching, if you can speak to what are people afraid of? What are people sad about? What really makes people hurt and upset and scared and fearful? If you can start to really pay attention to that and get into that minutia of the human experience, that's what artists do and writers and actors, right? That's why movies are so powerful and books are so powerful. You know, nobody ever, like, the best TED Talk in the world doesn't nearly have as many views as a music video, right? It's because there's something about the story, or you know, movies. There's something about stories that are so much better than presentations. So the more you can tap into the stories, and those TED Talks that are the most successful are the ones that get into our emotions and are able to paint an emotional picture. So action, what can you actually do with all this stuff? And I apologize if I'm not giving enough actionable tips here today, but you know, I really wanted to stress these higher level concepts and these ideas. And Craig, maybe I can come back to offer more practical tips. But you know, with action, the number one things I want to tell you to do is just make videos now and often. The reason for that is put your pitch out there to the market and let the market decide. Are people resonating with your message? Why not? If you put a little more effort into it, engagement, and you looked into the camera a little more and had some more facial expressiveness and physical expressiveness, maybe they're engaging more. Great. Maybe you do that and they're still not engaging. Maybe you're not telling the right emotional story. Or maybe it's the story is too deep. You haven't hooked their attention at the beginning. Maybe you haven't set up the ordinary world properly. Maybe you just don't have a great idea, which is not usually the case. It's usually a matter of framing, because once people have this idea, there's something to it, right? But put the videos out there, see how people respond, get feedback, look at the engagement, analyze the metrics, and see how is your pitch landing on people. And this is such a great way to figure out what resonates emotionally with people, because that's what people interact with on social media. It's a great thing to say, is my message resonating emotionally? If nobody's commenting or liking or sharing, then it's not. And the more content you can put out there, and the more comfortable you feel in this setting right here on the camera, talking to people through the screen, the better you will be able to pitch to your investors and say, okay, here's my story. And I know people resonated, and I have some data, and I have the confidence of making these videos and getting all the rust off. When I first started making videos personally, and it still happens, when that little light goes on, either that green light that's on the Mac or the red light of the thing of your microphone or whatever it is, we all go, oh, fuck, what am I talking about? Oh, how do I be myself? I don't even remember what I talk like or how I sound. We freeze up. The more you can just do it, practice it again and again and again and again, and just get comfortable with it and start to realize it's not that big a deal to put a video out on the internet. Nobody's going to even care or pay attention probably at the beginning. And that's great. That's actually liberating. So you can start to get all the crap out and start to feel comfortable with your message and repeat it enough and see what lands. So that's what I would tell you. Just make these videos now and often. There's some great stats on how amazing video marketing is. So whether you just need to reach some more people to get a wider audience so that you have something more attractive to a partner or to an investor, or you just need to build your customers and build your client base. And remember, this is all part of your pitch. Just buy into the video marketing thing, because it really, really does work. There's all these incredible stats here that show how much the return on investment for video marketing really is there. And the reason video is so much better than a social media blog post or a picture with a caption is because we can hear your voice and we can see your face. And that's that empathy thing. That's what makes human beings connect. So if you can hit the emotional notes, talk about what makes us human, what we all share, but also we can see your face and your facial expressions and hear your voice, then people will be so much more likely to want to do business with you, to want to follow you, and all that. And then just look, take notes, measure it, see what works, eliminate what doesn't, ask for feedback, get feedback from your market, get feedback from people you trust, reach out to Craig and me. We'll look at your slide deck. We'll look at a video pitch that you do for free. That's the kind of thing we're doing here. We're trying to give entrepreneurs as many tools as they can to survive and thrive during all this. So, reach out and get that market feedback, and measure what you're doing too. This comes from my good friends at Dent. They talk about laps, leads, appointments, presentations, and sales. So when you get a lead, you're going to pitch to them eventually, right? When you get when you get a phone call, and eventually you're going to get on the computer with them and go, okay, here's my program, and here's a walkthrough, or here's my pitch. And then measure how many of those are happening, how many of those are turning to sales, and then tweak and fix. Okay, we're getting a lot of leads, but not a lot of sales. Well, what's going wrong there? Do I need to hone my pitch, my sales pitch? Or we're getting no leads, but lots of sales. Okay, so we're not getting enough video content out there, and just always be measuring. And then here's some great video tools you can use. Loom is to send videos. I like to use this one either internally to your organization. To instead of an email, you just send a video. It's so much better and takes way less time. You just say, hey, I love that thing you sent, but this is really important too. And, that's a great way. Or you can also welcome a new client with it or something like that. It's a great human touch. Bonjoro is an email video marketing tool, which works really nicely. Video Ask is a way to get market feedback by sending a video to your market and saying, hey guys, just want to ask you a question. Biteable is a video editing and posting software. And then Vectera is a kind of Zoom plus. You can sort of host things and you can walk people through. There's like a whiteboard feature and there's all this cool stuff that Zoom doesn't have. So I want you to become comfortable on camera, which is why I'm sharing all this stuff with you. And I believe that this is the future of entrepreneurship. Is we're going to be doing a lot more video stuff. There's going to be a lot less in person. So get comfortable on camera as soon as you can. And then really what I want to leave you with before questions is the golden rule, which is just whenever you're speaking, telling a story, you really only have two rules. You have to make your audience understand and you have to make them care. And if you've done that, no matter if you don't know a stat off the top of your head, or if you fumble some words, or if you have an accent in English and sometimes you don't pronounce everything perfectly, that doesn't matter. What really matters is that people understand you and that they care. And it doesn't matter if they love you or think you're cool or you look sexy or whatever the hell you're worried about. It just matters that you make them understand and make them care. And the more effort you can put into that and show them that you're making that effort, the more they will feel taken care of by you and want to go for you if they ever have a problem in your area of expertise. So sorry, that was a huge, long presentation, but we can call it there and open up for questions.
Well, I wanted to do a callback when we were talking about the cultural dimensions. Kathleen had mentioned in there a specific book called The Hammer in Silicon by I'm trying to remember the name, Sheila Puffer.
Hammer in Silicon, yeah.
Were you aware of this book?
No, I like the pun of the title.
It's the Soviet diaspora in the U.S. innovation economy, and one of the things she highlighted was, they had to learn how to smile.
Yeah, if anybody has I have Russian background in my family, and I have had Russian friends, and yeah, that's sometimes you talk to them and they're just like, you're like, are you about to punch me in the face? But it's like, it's true. It's a huge disparity. Difference in the way that like what we value in different cultures. Like, a handshake can be either really, really friendly or really uncalled for. Eye contact can either be really respectful or the exact opposite. So yeah, really, really paying attention to that stuff is just great. And yeah, the more you can read on it, the more you can, learn about it and just start to pay attention. But also, what I always say is never assume that when you're talking to a Russian person or a Chinese person or anybody from, a country that you may have a different thing, never assume that that's the way they're going to be. But it's good to know that there are sort of these aggregate averages, things that do come across from culture. But really, you should pay attention to every single individual when you're talking to them, because you can glean so much information just by looking at their face in the moment and seeing, how your words are landing and how you can connect with them.
So Patricia mentioned that she's taking, I think it's called the Czech Ignite Video Challenge.
That looks awesome. Yeah,
30-day where she has to shoot a new video every day and
get
reviews and tips. So she goes
amazing.
On. What tools are you
Patricia.
using for that, Patricia? Let us know. That's a great way of doing it. And if there's a link to wherever that challenge is, feel free to throw it in the chat room so we can all see it. And Anatoly's here. He's got some questions for you. Remember?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Have you heard of? How would you pronounce that? Do you see that?
I can't see this question.
It's MMMHMMMM.
Have you guys heard of
Yeah, I guess. Did you have an opportunity to use it already? Any thoughts? This is a really interesting.
I do not
tool.
know. Yeah. No, I don't.
I didn't know that. We'll have to take a look at that one. Definitely. That's why it's a good catch for there.
Yeah.
How do you pronounce that? So Linda, yes. Well, I'll be posting this video tomorrow or the next day. I'm about a day behind posting and editing these videos. So it'll be on TorontoStarts.com by Friday for sure. And
Yeah, I'm sorry if I rambled too long and didn't get it and give everyone some questions. I can post a link to my Calendly. I'm giving 40 free, I think it's 30 minutes now, free 30-minute strategy sessions where you can just hop on. You can give me your pitch, and I can give you specific feedback, and we can just discuss what it is that you're struggling with in terms of content creation, marketing, storytelling, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, please throw that link in the chat
Okay, I'll
room
do
there
that
so
now.
people can
Yeah.
be interested in meeting with you.
And
So
if,
how? Go ahead.
yeah, go for it.
So how, what I know people get down in the weeds on their pitch. You're a founder, you're fascinated by the super technical solution that you came up to this problem that
Hmm.
really no one else cares about. How do you get someone out from that weeds to make, the 12-minute pitch that they have to talk about
Yeah.
their exciting stuff to down to that 1 or 2 or 3 minutes that really makes an audience understand?
Well, it is hard without an outside eye and ear. I would say if you have anybody from your target demographic in your life who will humor you for an hour and just sit down and listen to your pitch and just ask them to be brutally honest and say, like, what don't you understand? What would you really want to know as a customer? What am I missing here? And just try to get that kind of feedback. They might not be able to help you from a business perspective, but they can definitely help you from a customer problems and questions perspective. So they'd be able to kind of provide that. Another thing is um, there's all sorts of resources online of like what should be included in a pitch and what shouldn't, and just try to stick to making it simple. Like, don't try to add so much text on your slides. Just pare it down and go, okay, what would people care about that aren't me? And that's where this empathy thing comes in, to go like, okay, I really care that this piece of tech that took my team months and months and months to build, and it does this little flicky thing when you swipe, and I'm so excited by it, but nobody cares. What is it going to give them? Just think about problems and solutions. What does it do in people's lives? Like, how does it really make it better? And the deep stuff, not just like people are walking 17 minutes to work. This thing can make them walk 15. Does anybody really care about that? Maybe not. But if it's something that will help them lose weight, or something that will help them live longer, or something that will give them more time with their family, like finding a way to tie it back to those big 5 pain points, and especially emotional well-being, and you really, really start to get somewhere. So yeah, just think about, and what I said in that startup story is the need to know info. So just take out, if you don't need it, get it out of there. Don't waste time with stuff that you don't need to know, that they don't need to know.
And here's the Ignite Video Challenge link that Patricia sent us. I think everyone else couldn't see it, so I just put it in there. And did you want to put your Calendly link in, or
Yes,
did you do
sorry,
that
I'm just
already? I
grabbing
didn't
that. I
see
got
that. Okay,
so
cool.
invested in answering the
Yeah.
questions.
Oh, that's great. And we probably have time for another question if anyone wants to ask one. And I'll just ask one more as you're putting that in.
Hmm.
So we talked briefly about the make understand part. What's the one thing you seen most entrepreneurs or most people pitch about the make them care part that they're just not doing?
I'd say including their personal story as to why they founded the company and putting that in the beginning of their pitch. Because when you remember that Taurus event we did, Danielle Graham was there, and I forget the name of the other VC who was talking, but they said they had just judged a pitch competition, and of the 24 people, all the 8 who went to the second round, and also the person who eventually won, all told a compelling story about why they started their company, and it was something personal, something that showed they really cared about it. So I always say, like, you got to tell your story and put it in there, because people are going to be doing business with you, especially investors. Maybe not customers once your company reaches a certain size, although personally, I think that's still very important to keep it even as you get funded a little bit. But especially to investors, they're going to be speaking with you and talking to you and working with you for a long time and very closely. If they don't know you or like you or feel for you, they're a lot less likely to want to engage in this huge business relationship. If you can bring them into you, right? You ever been talking to somebody and you're not sure if you really like them, and all of a sudden they tell you a story about how they grew up, and you just go, whoa, and you see them in a whole new light, and you're just like, I never knew that was back there. And that's really obviously going on with most of us all the time. But not as a cheat, but just put that story in there and let people in a little bit and let them go, oh my God, this person suffered this injury and that's why they started this new shoe company. Like, with Saeed, who had this wearable tech, he's like, I worked really hard and I invented this technology. I'm like, that's impressive. And then I was like, why did you start this company? And eventually he was like, well, me, my mother, and my uncle were all really injured at the same time. It was a horrible time for us. I was like, there it is, right? There's this really crazy life story that anybody would be interested to listen to, but especially somebody who wants to know, why are you the person who started this company and why will you stop at nothing to solve it, which is also investors want to see. They want to see that dedication and that long-term goal. Book some time with Will. Sorry, I didn't quite.
Yeah, hang on. You put it to all panelists, not to everybody here. Sorry
Okay.
for that. Thank you for mentioning you didn't get it. There it is.
Yeah.
That's
So yeah. But so basically I would say the one thing that you can really do is start to think about how your personal story ties in. And you remember how I put my personal story in the beginning of my thing today, how I was an actor and then I had all this stuff. That's all true, but I had to think about, okay, how does this all connect in a way that's sort of cohesive? Like all of that's true, but I also had to take out certain parts that weren't as interesting and I had to cut it down a little bit for time. But really, when I actually started to think about what my entrepreneur story is, I realized that there's a very clear through line between how I grew up and where I ended up. And, like Steve Jobs said, I think you can only connect the dots looking backwards. So do that work, look backwards and see what were the key moments in my life. And again, if you can tie them into something emotional, if you can tie them into something powerful and something that other people will relate to, and think about what are those things, maybe come up with 3 and go, okay, there's the 3 parts of my life, all of which brought me to this. And one last thing I'll say on that too is you can kind of tell your founder story often as like this. I used to do this, then I discovered this, and so I decided to start my company. And that's kind of like the ordinary world, and the solutions, the call to adventure. I used to work for a bank and I realized I hated it. I hated the corporate lifestyle and our customers were being screwed on this one little piece of banking, red tape. My app, and I realized that and I aimed to solve it. So my app, cuts out the red tape here, blah, blah, blah. So there's a sort of personal story there and there's like a frustration and you're speaking to that emotional side of things. So I would say, put that story in there. Don't be afraid to talk about those sort of things that made you frustrated and that you struggled with.
And that's great. Thank you for everything. Thanks for the
thanks
shout out,
for
Anatoly, for mentioning us doing a good job when we were doing your pitch review. And thanks for the great news and the update on how you're progressing with Founders
good job,
Institute.
Anatoly. Keep killing it.
Yeah, keep killing it and keep us in the loop for sure. And thanks everyone for coming out. We'll get Will to send out the slides to everyone, and I'll put this posted up in TorontoStarts in the next couple of days. So thanks everyone for coming.
Thank you guys. Have a great evening.